There we go. Welcome, everybody. What I wanted to talk about today was things to say to a seller. Okay? And there's a handout. I'm going to be going through it in a little minute. What my recommendation is, scripts, no scripts. Let's just make sure we understand what the process is in real estate, right? So the beginning of getting a commission check, the starting point is you're going to need to have conversations with people about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, right? Conversations can lead to appointments, and then appointments would lead to clients, and then clients would lead to commission checks, right? Just want to make sure we're all clear on this. So one of the things what would help you as an agent is that if every week you asked yourself, what will I say? What are the kinds of conversations I might have about real estate, and what am I going to say? Now, I'm not doing this one today. I'm going to be making a video on the market update for Santa Clara County, and I've done others. But the first question people are likely to ask you is, how's the real estate market? Right? I mean, if you admit to people that you're in real estate, they're going to say, oh, you're in real estate, so how's the market? Right? Now, if you do not have a good answer for that question, or you stumble, or, that sort of thing, then, you've missed an opportunity. And of course, the answer is it depends on if you're buying and if you're selling, and it depends on where you might be buying or selling, and it depends upon what price range. Is there anything particular that you're interested in, right? And if I would just say also, if I wanted to make a general statement, I would say, well, the market is shifting. I've been in real estate and the market is always shifting, right? I didn't want to say the year, right? But the market is always shifting. So we're going to, in addition to being able to discuss what's going on in the market, are interest rates going up or down? Are days on market going up or down? Is the median and average price going up or down? Are there particular areas in your county or city that you're focused on that are doing well, that are not doing well? Are there certain price ranges that are doing well or not doing well? It would help if you knew stuff like that, because then you'd have something to talk about. Now, I'm not going to be drilling into all of that today. There's other classes, some of which I've already made on it. But let's say you're talking to a seller. You've got one, a live one, right? Either you've been talking to the people you know, and somebody that you know or somebody that they know wants to sell the house, and now it's your chance, right, to talk to them. Or you're, door knocking. I'm not big on that, but if you feel like doing it, go ahead. And you've now got somebody to talk to. All right. So what are some of the important dialogues that you might want to look at? And first of all, there's the why sell now? Now, my first bullet point may not seem to make much sense, but it's called Feel, Felt, Found. And one of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about how to answer objections. We're going to do a teensy bit of that today, but there's going to be a coming class on it. And if somebody says to me, for example, let's say I'm talking to a potential seller and they say, well, I've decided that I'm going to wait till next year to sell my house because prices are going up and I think I'll be able to make more money next year. I would say, I understand how you feel, all right? I mean, obviously, if you're selling your house, you're going to want to sell it for the highest price possible. And many people, right, that I talk to have felt the same way that you feel. Now, the reason I'm starting with, I understand how you feel, and many people have felt the same way, is because this is what's called a cushion when you're talking to somebody and they have an objection. So what we mean by a cushion, just like something you could, put your head on or sit on, it's a little bit softer. So if somebody says to me, well, I plan on selling next year when prices are going to be higher than there are now, and I say, well, that's stupid. Only an idiot would do that. Now is the time. You understand, as soon as and I'm not saying you guys are going to call them idiots or stupid, but if you use the wrong words, that might be the impression they're getting. So as soon as I say, I understand how you feel, many people have felt exactly the same way. right? So now the guard isn't, as high. But what I've found, and what many of my clients have found, and what many sellers are have found, is that they don't want to take the risk of the market not being as strong as it is today, right? They may not. And the reason they don't want to take the risk is because we can't predict the future. At least I can't. I actually tell clients, right? By the way, I've had people that have seen me meet with clients know I'm not kidding that I actually say stuff like this to them. But I would say to a client, I used to have a crystal ball. I did, right? And I could see the future in it, but it broke. There's a part missing. And it's on back. I can't get the part to fix the crystal ball. I can't see the future. And by the way, the last time I did this, which was on a listing appointment not that long ago, I said to the seller, if I could predict the future, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now. I don't know what I'd be doing because I can't predict the future, but I would probably have something else to do. So it might be better in 6 months. It might be better at the end of next year. It might be better, but it also might not. So what I would say to a seller, let me see what's happening with what I would say to a seller. You're not sharing your screen. Thank you for telling me that. How about that? You've all gotten a copy of the handout. I just want to see if you're paying attention. All right. How about that? So, you haven't missed much yet. So I would ask people, thank you, Rob. Have you ever heard of business cycles? Have you ever heard that there's a business cycle and a real estate cycle and that over time it goes up and down? Have you ever heard of that? And people are either going to say yes or no, right? And if they say no, well, how about this? If they say yes, yeah, I've heard of that. Do you have any idea how long a typical business cycle or real estate cycle might run? Do you have any idea? Now, some people are going to say yes and some people are going to say no. Now, if they say, no, I've never heard of real estate cycles, and no, I have no idea how long they run, I would say, well, real estate, like our economy and like many things, has a tendency to go up and down over time. And it'll go up, and then it'll go down, and then it'll go up, and it'll go down. It's sort of a natural rhythm. Now, if you Google search this and read people talking about it, they would oftentimes refer to the 10-year, sometimes 12-year business cycle, right? Which means that every 10 or 12 years, there's a correction in the market, changes direction, and then all that sort of stuff. Do you know when our last major correction was? Do you know what year that was? Sometimes people say, I don't know, 2008, 2009, right, 2008, 2009. Now, if we take 2008 and 2009 and we add 10 to 12 years to that, where are we? Like now, I think, is where we are. So if this were I don't normally do sports metaphors, sports analogies, because I don't like them. But if I'm talking to somebody and they have baseball paraphernalia, they're wearing their Giants jersey, when I'm talking to them, I would say, if this was a baseball game, what inning do you think we're in right now? Given if that 10, 12-year cycle, where are we? What inning? And it's like maybe overtime, right? Maybe, the ninth inning. So, but we don't know, but we do know that the economy does go through cycles, including real estate. The last time there was a downturn, prices dropped 27% and took 12 years to recover. What that means is that if you miss the peak, right, if you miss it, and the market drops, that it goes down, it usually flattens out for at least 2 years, and then it starts to come back again. By the time it's gone down, flattened out, and got back to where we are now, last time it took 12 years to get back to that point. So you just need to understand, if you miss it, you could lose a lot of money. 27% last time, 12 years to recover. So what could cause that? Well, outside events might cause that. I mean, there's wars and pandemics and droughts and fires and God knows what, right? But we can't really predict. Also, there is increasing inventory. Now, I'm going to, when I have a few extra moments, make a what's going on in the real estate market in my area, in one of the areas that I work, which I'll make a video of and post it on my YouTube channel. And if you're in my group, I'll give you copies of the slides. But one of the things that I go over is what's happening to inventory. Inventory, by the way, has been rising. Last 3 months up through July, inventory is going up. Look at the numbers in your market. And why would inventory be rising? Well, there's in some places an easing of COVID. I know that's, back and forth. There are seasonal trends where the market seems to go up and down, and we seem to be going into a trend where there's more listings coming on. As mortgage forbearance ends, people that haven't had to sell their home because they weren't paying their loan, because they didn't have to pay their loan, are going to probably have to sell their loan. Sell their home because they may not be able to make the mortgage payment. We're probably going to have less landlords, because if you were owning single-family homes, condos, and townhomes, and you were renting them out to tenants, you might be tired of being a landlord because there's eviction moratoriums and there's rent control and there's all these other things going on. So we're expecting more people that own rentals to put them on the market, and there may be a stampede. Now, what I mean by a stampede is many sellers are waiting. They're trying to time the market, right? They want to wait maybe 6 months, next year, for when the market is peaked, and then they plan on listing their home so they can get the most money. Now, although I understand why somebody would have that strategy, but you have to realize that we won't know that the market is peaked until the peak has actually passed. Now, I've done this before, and what usually happens is there's a whole bunch of sellers that are sitting on the side because they're waiting for the market to peak. And there are, and as soon as the market peaks and you start to see inventory rising a lot and prices starting to drop a little, there's a stampede of sellers that want to rush their home to the market to beat the drop, right, to get it on the market first. And I actually say it's like a herd of wildebeest on the tundra, and they hear a loud noise and they turn and they just start running. So when the market peaks and the peak is past, all of the sellers that have been sitting on the market sitting on the fence and not putting their homes on the market, how about that, are going to rush to put their homes on the market, which means there'll be a flood of inventory. And what happens when buyers see a flood of inventory is they back off. So as soon as the buyers start to see that prices are dropping and inventory is rising, they're going to say, well, why don't we back off for a little while and we'll just ride the roller coaster down a little bit. Right. By the way, when we get to that point, I'm going to be doing another class on what you might want to say to buyers because they don't want to wait for it to hit bottom for similar reasons. And those two things together, the surge of inventory at the same time that buyers back off, that's why prices can drop 20%, 25%, and sales can plummet. And already, I'm just letting you guys know, because I have a relatively large team with quite a few transactions going on, we're seeing sellers that are rushing to put their homes on the market now because they're afraid of this happening. Now, what I would say to a seller is, I can't predict the future, but I can tell you what's happening now. And what's happening now is you could sell your home in a relatively short period of time. One of the agents that I'm going to talk to later, whose listing hasn't sold yet, she might be on the call, but it's she's unhappy. Her listing it's been 6 days, right? 7 maybe by now. Oh my God, 7 days. What is the median time? By the way, in Santa Clara County, the median time on market for August of 2021 for a single family home was 8 days, right? Median, right? 8 days. So that would be a good number for you to know. You can say right now in our market, homes are selling in X number of days. And if you're able to sell when it's a seller's market, you're less likely to have to make repairs. Because it's a seller's market, you're going to get a higher price, and you'll sell in a shorter period of time. And there's probably going to be a lot less hassle. I'll talk more about that. And that's because if you're selling when it's a strong seller's market, buyers are less likely to have contingencies. They're less likely to make demands because they're competing against other agents. Now, I've recorded this and I've given you an outline, and you don't have to use my words, but my belief is you need to be able to explain this to somebody. And then you're going to hear people say, I was on a listing appointment recently, and they said, isn't it true that the market slows down at the end of the year? Right? I mean, October, November, and December are oftentimes slow months, historically. Now, I'm in Silicon Valley where things are crazy. How crazy are things in Silicon Valley? The average price of a single family home in Santa Clara County. By the way, I'm sure all of you know this, don't you? Because you're real estate professionals, right? And you're studying the market and you know what's going on, so you can have conversations with people. So I know most of you already know this, that the average price single family home in our county last month was over $2 million. Yeah, average. Over $2 million. Make sure my phone doesn't keep making noise to me. All right, how about that? So, is it true that in October, November, and December, the number of sales goes down? Is that true? I was asked that, and the answer is yeah, that's true. All right. Does that mean it's a better time to sell the home next spring? Because then the market is going to pick up. Now, I happen to know my area that in December of 2020, the market did not slow down. And in December of 2019, the market did not slow down. And in 2018, I wrote an offer on Christmas Eve because the market did not slow down. Right? So it's not always true that the market slows down. You ought to know what's going on in your area. But even though let's assume that the market in terms of number of sales slows down, the question is who's looking in fall and winter, who's looking to buy homes? And the answer is more serious people. Because the spring and summer, it's nice outside, and why don't we go look at homes and that sort of thing. In the fall and winter, the people that are out looking are generally more serious because they're moving at a time when people oftentimes aren't. And although there will be more buyers in spring, there are also going to be more sellers in spring. So in the fall and winter months, there's less competition. The buyers that are buying are more serious, and there aren't going to be as many listings. Actually, Mike, the median price for a single family home was 1.65. Yes, Ken, I said average. Run average. Average price for a single family home run the average and tell me if it doesn't begin with a 2. Average. The median is 1.6, as Ken pointed out. Ken knows his numbers. But why, when I do my video on what's going on in the market, why would the average be so much higher than the median? And the answer is because there's been a lot more sales at the top of the market. What do we get? He says I'm right. It's 2.03 million. Ha, ha. Anyhow. So thank you, Ken, but by the way, that's an important distinction, right? The median is the one in the middle. That's 1.6. average is, adding them all up and dividing by the number of sales, that's over $2 million. And what that means is that the market is stronger in the higher end than it is in the bottom in my area. Do you understand? If you guys learn your market and those statistics and know what's going on, that will allow you to compete effectively with experienced agents. Market knowledge allows newbies and non-top producers to compete with them because you know what's going on. All right, so in the fall, the buyers are more serious. There's less competition because other people have bought into it's not a good time to sell. And the demographics are different. Why in spring and right before fall are there ups and surges in the buying of real estate? And the answer is because back to school, right? It's the back to school. People want to move before school. So those people are not typically buying in the fall and winter. It's the millennials and the empty nesters that are out buying without children, or they're all adults. Those are the ones that are buying. The demographics has changed. And that those are still people that have the money to buy. All right. How are we doing? Right. You should expect to get I'm going to wait until things get better. You should expect to get that. And I hear that fall and winter is not a good time to sell a home. And you should practice what you're going to say when you hear those objections. You should be able to do this relatively smoothly, right? I'm just saying, right? Because if you're willing to invest your time and money and whatever in order to generate seller leads, you don't want it to fall apart because you don't know what to say to them. Pricing strategies. Some of you have heard this from me before. I'm doing it again. And as the market becomes a little bit more normal, right? Whatever normal. Isn't normal like a setting on a washer dryer? Anyhow, when it becomes a little bit more normal, this is going to become increasingly important. And one of the lines that I like to use when I'm talking to sellers is that it's a beauty contest and a price war, right? A beauty contest and a price war. Can you resend the handout? I will have somebody paste it in. So it's a beauty contest and a price war. I think that it was. Thank you, Ron. A beauty contest and a price war. So this is what I always say to sellers. There are 3 ways of pricing, 3 strategies for pricing your home. The first strategy is we're having a sale. And when we're doing that strategy, what we're going to do is deliberately price it low, below where we expect to be, so that we'll create maximum exposure. We want the open houses to look like anthills, right, with people crawling over each other to look at the house. And if we do that right, we can expect multiple offers. And if we're getting multiple offers, we're more likely to get non-contingent offers. Now, I'm in a market where people are really serious, I would just say, when they're selling homes at $2 million above average, serious, right? And so in our market, if I list a home, and I've been doing this for decades, but it's more common up here, we'll get a termite or a property inspection, a roof inspection, a pool. We're going to get all the inspections. And the reason the seller is going to pay for all those inspections is because if you don't do that, then there's not going to be as much of a chance of getting a non-contingent offer. So if you don't have a termite and a property and a roof and a chimney and a pool and all those other inspections, then you should expect the buyer to make an offer with that as a contingency. But even if you're in a market where people don't do that, and by the way, that doesn't mean you can't, right? If you don't want your escrows to fall apart, you want to get the seller to get those inspections up front so that you already have them. Otherwise, you're going to be renegotiating the price in the middle. But if I get the inspections up front and there's a lot of interest, I'm more likely to get a non-contingent offer based upon the property condition. Also, when agents realize they're competing against other agents and buyers, they're more likely to remove the loan contingency if they are really pre-approved. I mean, if they're really pre-approved, really, why do they need a loan contingency? And you're more likely to see them remove the appraisal contingency if the buyers realize that there's multiple offers and they're competing. You're going to get a higher price. The more people want the house, the more people want the house. And if you can get them bidding against each other, it's going to bid up. And then I would show the reality of the market. And I wasn't really planning on doing this, but I feel motivated. So this is a report that I always take with me on a listing appointment. And whether you may not be using this version of Matrix, you may be using Paragon software, you may be using a different Matrix version, you may be using Rapatoni software. All of them have the ability to do what I'm about to do. So let's say I'm going to, I've got a listing coming up. Let's say it's a single family home and it's in a particular zip code 95118, right? Which, by the way, is also known as one of the zip codes in an area that's called Cambrian. And I might look at what 90, I'm using this change date. There's 106 sales in the last 90 days. Why don't we just see what's happened in the last 30 days? Now, your software may require that you do something different to do this, but this is not difficult. Sold properties, last 30 days, in the zip code, city, or marketing area that the property is located in. I'm going to click on results. Here they are. I'm going to click on all. Now, we have the ability to create an export. And you can too. If you don't know how to do that in your MLS, call your MLS. You pay them a lot of money and ask them, how do I make an export? That little pencil icon might be helpful. But I've already done this. So I have got a bunch of exports. One of them is called how much over? How much? And I'm going to click export. And I'm going to see if I can find it. And then I'm going to open it up. And this is what it looks like. Now, again, I'm recording this. If you're not good at Excel, just watch the video. It's not that difficult. But I'm going to type in difference. And then I'm going to type in percent. And then this cell equals the sales price minus the list price. And percent equals the difference divided by the list price. And
sorry, Mike, this isn't showing.
A percent. Now, when it's not showing, really. What do you mean it's not showing? Can you not see my...
We only see export 43 records, but we don't see what you're working on.
You can see it now. All right. It was showing a part of my screen that wasn't there. All right. So everybody can see it. This is the export from the MLS. And for, a cookie, I'll give you a copy of the export. And what I've done is I have the street name, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, price per square foot, age, sale date, days on market, list price, sales price. I typed in difference, ERENCE, and percent. And so and some donuts, cookies. And when I'm giving this to clients, I'm going to highlight the ones that are dollars and make them have a dollar sign and things like that. But now that I've done this, what I'm going to do is highlight those two cells, and I'm going to drag it all the way down to the bottom. So, by the way, if you're on my team or somebody I'm mentoring or working with or have sponsored into EXP and you want help, just let me know, because my MLS works where your MLS is, and I could easily run this report, but you should learn how to do it. So now what I've done is I've dragged it down so it shows all the percentages. I highlight the first row because it tells Excel that that's fields, and then I click on percent. I go up here, and I go up here and I select largest to smallest and I hit sort. Now, look at this printout. People are getting 22, 23, 20, 20, 19. Look at all these. Look at how many people got more, 10% or more than what they listed it for. And by the way, at the very bottom of this, I'm going to, and I do this as I go through, I'm going to go over here, click on this, and I'm going to click on average. So the average in that zip code is 10%. Average, last 30 days, that zip code, single family homes, sellers got 10% more than they listed it for. And look at how many of them got, I don't know, 15% or more. A whole bunch. A whole bunch. Also, you're going to notice, by and large, the days on market are very low for the ones that got a high percent over list price. Very low. And the ones that got low, their days on market is very high. Now, the reason why this is an important thing for you to know is because those numbers in my market vary by city, they vary by zip code, and they even vary by price range and bedrooms and bathrooms, right? And so if I had enough and I knew the listing was a 4-bedroom home, I might just look at 4-bedroom homes in your zip code. How much did they actually get over list price? Now, the reason why knowing this is important is because, let's go back to our pricing strategy. Knowing this is important because if we use the second approach, right? The first approach is we're having a sale, and we're going to price it deliberately below where we expect it to be, because the market is such that people generally pay more than the list price. Look at it. And by the way, the problem with averages is that they're, well, averages. In other words, if I'm in an office and when the air conditioning goes on, it gets really, really cold, and then when it turns off, it gets really, really, really hot. And if I average the temperature over time, then it might actually be a comfortable temperature, but it's never that temperature. It's either really, really hot or really, really cold. That's the problem with averages. So what I'm saying is that if we decide that we're going to price the property based upon what we want to end up with. So let's say my client wants 1.6, and he says, this is what I call price is right. We've looked at all the numbers. We've figured out that we think 1.6 is the right price for our house. I want you to list it for 1.6, and we're going to just stick to it. That might work and it may not. And one reason it doesn't work is because in my market, buyers know that people are generally getting 10% over list price. They know that. So if I list it for 1.6, buyers are going to be saying, oh my God, they're crazy. They must want 1.8 or something for it. It's not worth that. So in other words, they're not necessarily going to believe that what we listed it for is what we want. Why wouldn't they believe that? Because they've been writing offers on property in my market and they realize that they're always selling for a lot more than what they're listed for. I had a listing not that long ago in Sunnyvale. The seller wanted 1.6, as I recall, and the agent I was working with listed it at 1.6. It's sitting there, it's not selling. We lowered it $150,000, and then it sold for 1.6. Does everybody understand? When we lowered the price, it eventually sold for the price that we wanted. Now, where I'm going with this is that if you don't effectively communicate this strategy to your client and they don't go with the let's start low and go high, you might never get a commission check because the price is right. We look at all the comps, we look at everything, we determine what we think the price ought to be, we list it for that, we stick to it, we don't budge. Well, we're going to get a lot fewer offers. We might not get any offers because buyers are worried that we really want more. And we're more likely to have contingencies. The longer it's on the market, the pricing being high oftentimes will generate more contingencies. Agents that I work with call me and say, hey, can you help me write an offer? How much do you think we ought to offer? My first question is going to be, how long has this property been on the market? If you say 3 days, was it busy over the weekend? Oh, yeah. And the open house was just insane. There were people all right, well, that changes how we write the offer. If you say to me, well, it's been on the market 30 days, and when I looked at their calendar program to schedule a showing, we could have picked just about any day we wanted to. Okay, well, we're not going to, now we're going to have all the contingencies. So if the price is right, sometimes it doesn't work at all, right? And you're more likely to get fewer offers, more contingencies. Then there's the needle in the haystack. And the needle in the haystack is the pricing strategy where we deliberately price it high with the idea that we could come down later. We could just come down later. You know, maybe some crazy person will walk into the property and buy it even at its inflated price. Right? By the way, I actually say this to people. You know what we call those listings? We call them expired listings. That's what we call them in the market. Right? And that much longer to sell, more contingencies, fewer offers, ultimately lower price. I explain to clients in the first 2 weeks, I mean, if you look at 8 days as the median days on market for a home in your area, you realize that in 2 weeks, if we have not sold your house, we have a problem. Right? We're going to have a problem. Because if you end up being on the market for 3 or 4 weeks when the average, you're on the market for 21 to 30 days and the average is 8 to 10, or the median is 8 to 10, people are going to be wondering what's wrong with your house, which is kind of crazy because it's still not that long. But does everybody understand if we do everything right, get everything ready, put it on the market, it's all clean, everything, marketed right, do the open houses, show the property, and take offers, and we do that quickly, that is much more likely to produce the best price for you and the best terms and conditions, you understand. Now, by the way, I've done this, and after I've explained the 3, I'll ask the client, well, which one of these 3 do you think is going to work best with the sale of your property? And do you know what they almost always say? Number 2, price is right. They just say, well, price is right. I think we ought to just, we were thinking 1.6, so, why don't we just list it for that? And then I say, I'm sorry, I apologize. Apparently, I didn't explain this well. And then I start over saying word for word what I said before. And I've had people say, okay. And by the way, I've had listings where I told the owner that I would get him 1.2, but he should start at 999. Right, and his son, who obviously is an expert in real estate somehow, said, that's crazy, that'll never work. How did I get him to do it? I showed him that spreadsheet. That's how I got him to do it. And by the way, it sold for 1.22. I showed him the spreadsheet. And I said, look at what the typical seller is getting over list price. Look at this, right? Because that's how we know where to price yours. By the way, if you get we're going to start low so it comes, we end up high, you don't have to hit the number right on the head when you list it because you're deliberately listing it low. Right? You're deliberately listing it low. You're much more likely to get to sell, and your client is much more likely to get their money. All right? Now, that, by the way, is going to be a little contradictory with what I'm about to say later, but I have the right to be, did I do that right? Sell or buy first. Oh, that's weird. I guess I didn't do that. Hold on 1 second. this, just give me a second. I didn't realize I didn't do that. All right, we'll see if we get to it. Otherwise, I'll give you guys a bonus because I don't know if I left it. I didn't put it in. All right. Then there's the seller buy first. And so people want to buy a house, but they have to sell their house before they buy a house. But they don't want to sell their house first, because they want to find the house they want to buy first. That's what they want to do. And so what they want to do is to buy the house they want to buy, but make that purchase contingent upon their selling their house. Which, by the way, means they're probably not going to buy a house. Because if you have the I need to sell my house as a contingency to buy your house, the only sellers that are even going to consider that are those that have been on the market 100, 200 days. If this is a fresh listing, nobody wants that contingency. You have to sell your house in order to buy a house. They don't want that contingency. And even if you could convince somebody to accept that contingency, you would have to pay a whole lot more because you got this contingency. So then what happens, now that they've made an offer to buy a house contingent upon them selling a house, now they don't want to sell their house unless they can buy that other house. So now they want to make their sale contingent upon their ability to buy the other house. This is the safest thing to do. However, it means very few people will want to buy your house if they're buying it and you have a contingency that says, I don't want to have to sell my house to you unless I can complete the purchase of this other property. So what you've done by having the seller, I won't sell unless I can buy contingency, is you've shrunk the universe of potential buyers to a very small group, and they don't want to pay as much. So by using these two contingencies, by the way, if you have them together, chances are you don't need to worry about this client because they're never going to buy or sell anything. And if they were able to buy or sell anything, they're going to have to pay more for the one they're buying, and they're going to get less for the one they're selling. And that difference could be $100,000 depending upon the prices in your market. So one of the things you have to be able to explain is that there are alternatives, right? One of the alternatives, and by the way, some lenders have HELOCs that you can get that are it's called a bridge loan. I'll get Jody to talk about that someday because I've done one where she did that. You also could sell your home and ask for 30 days or so as a rent back, which would delay when you give up possession, which would give you the opportunity to find another house. And so what I tell people to do is look now and see if there's a house that you like, right? Look now. And if you find a house that you like, and you can see that there are several options, so you're confident that if your home was sold, you would find something that you would want to buy, then we put your existing house on the market first. And we don't have, this is contingent upon us buying a house, because that does increase your risk some, but it means your price is going to go up a lot. And then now that we are in escrow on the first house, and those contingencies have all been removed, and we've got a buffer 30 or 60 days as our potential rent back, and we've removed the contingencies, and we have an upcoming close of escrow date with an estimated net closing statement. We're now in a position where we can make an offer to buy a house without actually making it contingent upon our sale. Right? And yes, that means that if for some reason the first one didn't close, you might lose your deposit on the second one, but we're not doing this until all the contingencies have been removed. And for proof of funds, what we would use is the net sheet from the one that's about to close. Now, it is still kind of true that this is contingent, not in the contract, because if you don't sell your house, you're not going to be able to buy a house. Right? It is contingent. but it's not a contingency of the contract. And hey, we're all ready. All the contingencies are removed. We're going to be closing in a week, 10 days. There's nothing left to be done. It's appraised. Everything is done. Here's the closing. Here's the closing statement. This is how much cash we're going to have. That's a much easier proposition to sell to a listing agent. Does everybody understand that? And by the way, we've tried a lot of other things. This is better than, bridge loans are possible. They're also called swing loans or HELOCs on one, so you have the money to buy the other. But those are sometimes a little bit expensive, right? I'll have somebody else talk about that later. So there was one other handout which I apparently didn't put in because I was busy helping agents with transactions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss it. And then while it uploads to Google Drive, I will then share it with you. Maybe I should only give this one to people that are in my coaching program. All right. So I'm going to explain it. Mostly, it's a lot of explanation. And then in a minute, when Google has updated itself, I'll share it with you. Let's see, how's Google doing? Come on, Google. Now I'm having issues. All right, so Google Drive. I don't know if Raw is still on the line, but get link. Anyone with the link. All right. So this is actually my most important script. We've got a bunch of any recommendations who has a good bridge loan. Jody Hatano at Golden One, they don't call it a bridge loan, but we'll have somebody talk about that. All right. So Raw is there. So let me just look at this, and this is sort of the outline. I didn't have a chance to copy it and put it into the text things because I was busy today. But I just want to go over, this is the, there's a YouTube up thing. All right, anyhow. You're on a listing appointment, and I'll tell you how I got to this. I think I can do this in 10 minutes. I used to farm an area in San Jose, and I did really well. And so I decided I would add a high-end area because I wanted to make more money. I wanted a higher price point. And so I come into this higher-end area. It's called Almaden. And at that time, there was this husband and wife team. They were called Chuck and Janet. And they were killing it in Almaden. They were just killing it. In other words, they were the #1 team in Almaden. They also, Almaden still has this little newspaper. They were running full-page ads that said they would list the home for 4%. And they were the top agent. And so I kept going on listing appointments. And this is the objection that I got. Well, Chuck and Janet seem to be selling all the homes in the neighborhood. I don't see your signs in the neighborhood. So they are the top. We're going to list our home with the agents who sell the most homes. Right? Do you think you might get that as an agent, that there's somebody working the neighborhood that you want to list a home in that is doing more business in that neighborhood than you are, and they've been mailing things to the client, to your potential client, bragging about all their sales? So this is how you would approach that. Right. Now, one of the things you want to do, and I'm going to have another class later about a complete listing appointment, but one of the things that you're going to want to do in the listing appointment, let me just see if I can, what is somebody, all right, is to at some point ask them at the beginning, why did you buy this house? I mean, this is what I say. I assumed, like 12 years ago, I see that it's when you bought this house, right? I bet this wasn't the only house you looked at 12 years ago. You probably looked at a bunch of homes, narrowed it down to 2 or 3, picked this one. What was it about this house that convinced you that this was the one you wanted to buy? And then they're going to say whatever they're going to say. It was the view, it was the backyard, it was the pool, it was the layout of the kitchen. They're going to say whatever they're going to say. And I go, all right, and, yeah, that's good. Oh, interesting. So then when they bring up to me, well, these other agents are selling, there's a Compass agent and he sells more real estate than you do in our neighborhood, so we're planning on listing with him because he sells all the houses and you don't. I would say, great. Remember, you told me, 12 years ago when you bought this house, you remember we talked about that. Can you tell me this? When you bought the house 12 years ago, do you remember who the listing agent was? 12 years ago when you bought this house, do you remember who the listing agent was? And by the way, I've never had anyone that knew their full name. I remember one of them said, Linda, I think, was the listing agent. All right, great. Linda. Do you remember the name of the company that Linda, the listing agent, worked at when you bought the home 12 years ago? And I remember they said, well, it was a blue sign. I think it was a blue sign, maybe Coldwell Banker. I said, all right, great. Now, explain to me how Linda and Coldwell Banker convinced you to buy this home. How did Linda and Coldwell Banker affect your decision and the price that you were going to offer for it? Explain to me how they did that. And of course they said, well, they didn't have anything to do with it. Really? They didn't have anything to do with it. Right? Because they found the home on Zillow and their own agent showed them the house. They never even met the listing agent sometimes. And I said, oh, really? So they had no effect on your decision to buy this home. Why do you think that's going to be different when you sell your home? Why do you think it's going to be different? It had no effect on your decision to buy. Remember, you told me you bought the home because of the backyard and the pool and the school and the view and the kitchen. You never mentioned Linda when I asked you why you bought the home, and you never mentioned Coldwell Banker. So why do you think that's going to be important now? And they usually look, I don't know. And then I really do this. I look around, like in sort of a conspiratorial way to see if anybody's listening. And I say, look, I'm going to tell you a secret. Most real estate agents will not tell you this secret. The secret is that real estate agents don't sell houses. Houses sell houses. So that doesn't mean that the real estate agent doesn't have an important role in getting the property ready and marketing the property and all that. But you see, ultimately, the house has to sell itself. And buyers are not, do you think a buyer has ever said, well, this house looks really good. It checks all of our boxes, but gee, we don't know if we should buy it. The listing agent hasn't won any sales awards, so we shouldn't buy this house. Do you think a buyer has ever thought that or said that? Buyers don't care who the listing agent is and who the listing office is. They don't care. They only care about the house. Well, but you don't understand that agent from Compass, he's selling most of the homes in the neighborhood. Obviously, he's good at selling homes. And no, I'm not sure that's really accurate. How about this? He's listing more homes in the neighborhood, but not selling the homes in the neighborhood. There's a difference between somebody who's good at personal promotion and somebody who's good at property promotion. That guy is really good at personal promotion. I have to hand it to him. Look at all of his marketing. His marketing is all about me, 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 me. Look how great I am. Look at what I did. But as we've just covered, who the listing agent is and the agent sales awards have nothing to do with whether or not a buyer is going to buy your property. Nothing to do with it. So what I'm suggesting to you is that rather than picking the agent based upon what they say about themselves, rather than doing that, why don't you pick the agent based upon what they're going to actually do to sell your home? And that's where you need to have a really good marketing plan. And your marketing plan should look better than the other agent's marketing plan, which it usually does, because the other agent doesn't think they need to get into it because they're just going to tell everybody, I sell most of the homes in the neighborhood anyhow. I just do. So then the seller says, well, wait a second. We talked to the guy, and he says that he's better at selling homes than anyone else because his homes sell quicker and they sell for more money than anyone else in the area. Quicker, and they sell for more money. And I go, really? The agent told you that? Really? The agent was willing to admit it? And they say, well, yeah. I said, well, let's just think about this logically. Right? What causes a house to sell? The condition of the house, the location of the house, the layout of the house, the school district that the house is in, the neighborhood, right, that the house is in. But let's say we controlled for all those things. 2 homes on your street, built at the same time, same builder, same square footage, same layout and design, remodeled, or if remodeled, they're the same homes essentially. In the same neighborhood, same conditions, same square footage, same school, everything is the same. And these 2 homes are on the market and one sells before the other. Why do you think that would happen? Why, if there's 2 homes that are otherwise identical and they're both on the market, why? What is the most common reason why one would sell before the other one would? How about price? How about price? So maybe that other agent sells more because he just sells them for less than anyone else. And therefore they sell quicker. And I'll bet that, when the agent says that he sells the homes for more than the other agents do, what he's really saying is that if you look at his list price and his sales price, that difference, like in my example, it was 10%. He says, well, mine is 15%. So the average in my zip code is to get 10% over, but my clients get 15 or 20% over. Well, isn't that connected to the first thing that he just started at a lower price? So let's say your home is worth 1.6 and I list it for $1 million. Will it sell quickly? And I get $500,000 over list price. That's 1.5. Are you happy? Are you happy with that? I don't think so, because you probably could have gotten 1.6. But just think what I get to tell all of your neighbors when I go and knock on their door and I talk to them about selling their home. I sold your home in 2 days. And I got you 50% over list price. I deserve a trophy, an award. So sometimes I've said to people, well, look, all right, maybe it will take a little bit longer. Maybe the point is that do you really want my system to simply be cut the price, cut the price, cut the price? So I'm going to fight for you to get your price. I'm going to fight for you to get your price. I'm not going to tell you to accept a lower price so that I can have a quick sale and everything is really easy and then I can brag about how much more than I got than the list price. Those statistics really, you understand, those statistics do not say that agent is getting people more than what their property is worth or more than what similar properties are getting. They're simply saying they got more than what they listed it for. And that just means that they started at a lower price. That's all that means. Anyhow, and I actually talk about, what listing agents do that are good at listing is they get the listing, they put it on the MLS, they market the listings, they market to get another listing, they market to get another listing. All of their marketing is about getting another listing. Now, I've actually said this to sellers. One of 2 things is probably going on. When that agent was here and talking to you, and they were saying, I sell more homes in the neighborhood, you should list with me, even though that never affected you in the past, who was the listing agent. I sell quickly because they price it low. I get a lot over list price because they price it low. If that agent's been telling you that, either, let's just assume they know what they're doing, they're being disingenuous, maybe even a little dishonest, right? Because they're telling you that these things are important, and yet they know they really aren't important because they know enough about real estate to know that buyers don't care about who the listing agent is or who the for sale sign, what color it is, or they don't care about any of that. They're only interested in the house. They may be telling you all this because it's a marketing salesy gimmick fast talking to get your listing. And apparently it works on a lot of people because they get a lot of listings. Right? So they might be a little bit, dishonest with you when they're saying all that, but that's not the worst case scenario. Right? The fact that they're not really being straight with you and honest with you about what's going to sell your house, that's not the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is they actually believe it. Because if they believe that it's them that makes your house sell and not the house, then they're going to think all I have to do is put my for sale sign with my picture on it and put it's all I have to do because I got the magic touch. Right? I put my picture on the sign and now the property is going to sell. Like that actually makes any difference. So what I say to people at this point is, after I get their confirmation that that they're understanding what I'm saying, that buyers don't really care who the listing agent is. They really don't care. They care about what the property looks like and everything else. What I say to them, can you see any reason why I won't be able to sell your home? Do you see any reason why I won't be able to get your home sold at a high price? Do you see any reason? Now, you might have heard that the goal of a sales presentation is to get people to say yes. I got another class coming up on that, and I'm going to say the answer is that's not true. We want them to say no. It's easier to get people to say no than it is to get them to say yes. Right? Because if you keep asking them questions that are loaded to a yes, they can smell what's happening. You're trying to force them to say yes. But if I say, can you see any reason why I wouldn't be successful at selling your home? Chances are they're going to say, well, no. Great. Then let's get started. All right. Let's get started. All right. Great script. I'm surprised I haven't run into this one before. Nobody has. It's mine. I'm not kidding. That one's an original, right? And I came up with this because I was getting beat up by agents that sold more homes than I did. And finally one day it hit me that they had just told me why they bought the house, but they never mentioned the listing agent. And then I thought, oh, I see. Right. You do it now. By the way, if you're in my area and you're on my team or somebody that I'm mentoring or in my group at EXP, and you want me to go with you on a listing appointment, I'll do it. I've said this before, as you might have you might have noticed. I've said this before, and it sometimes helps. Let me see. Sellers, when they sell their home, get an intangible, which is your promise to provide a service in the future. So that requires a little more effort than getting a buyer to buy a house, because a buyer buys something that is tangible. Right? You understand? Buyers don't care about you, right? Or the listing agent. They don't even care about their own agent. I've said that to people. Buyers don't even care about their own agent. Right, if I'm showing a buyer a house and I get lost and I show up late because I didn't know where the house was and it takes me 20 minutes to get the lockbox open because I've never done it before, and as I walk through the house I trip and fall and I hit my nose on the floor and I start bleeding, right, and I'm laying there in the fetal position and they walk through the house and they still like the house, I'm probably still going to make a sale. That's because the buyer doesn't care, right? The buyer doesn't care. And so the buyers buy something tangible, sellers buy an intangible, which is why in another class we're going to talk about what do you say to them about how you're going to market the property such that they're willing to trust you, even if you don't have a track record, with being their listing agent. That's in another class at another time. All right. I hope you found that useful. Right? If you guys are at a real estate office or on a team or doing something and you don't think you're getting the kind of help that you could use and you would like to get more of this kind of stuff, because I spend most of my time helping individual agents with their own marketing and their own scripts and their things like that. If you would like more of that, you've got my contact information in the chat. Reach out to me and I would be happy to talk to you. about how we could get you some more help. Thank you very much. Tomorrow we're talking about loans. I wouldn't miss it. Everybody, did you know that there's been changing in the guidelines for loans? There's a class tomorrow. If you're here, you probably got that one too. They've changed guidelines and loans. There are things that you might need to know about that. Register for that class if you haven't done it. Thank you very much, everybody. Stay safe out there. And have a good day. Bye, y'all.